I don't think psychedelics are a cure-all. I think they're a tool, just the same as breath work, meditation, yoga, healthy eating, daily mindfulness. All these things are tools. In my experience, psychedelics have helped in an immense way. And I think if politicians took a swig of some Peruvian mud juice, I think we'd see a lot of positive changes in society for sure.
All right, we are rolling, and I'm here with Brent Pella. How's it going today, man?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
Doing great. Stoked to have you on the show, man. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, appreciate you inviting me on, dude. It's good to see you again for the second time ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the first time we met, we were at Psychedelic Science in Denver, amongst a sea of people walking down that gigantic hallway. That was quite a sight.
That was rad, dude. That whole event was very much like a festival. It had a lot of like festival energy, just people breaking out into groups and cruising around from stage to stage. And probably most of the people were high too. So it was, it was super fun.
Absolutely. I definitely was super high there off some microdoses and some cannabis.
Yeah, I got so much free product. I thought I was going to get arrested on the flight back to LA. I was just walking in with like my backpack just full of mushroom chocolate and microdose supplements. And but luckily it's Denver. So TSA was like, you're all good.
Totally. It's a whole new time, a whole new era, for the psychedelics. And that's one thing I really enjoy about your content. For people who don't know, which probably isn't going to be many people that are listening to this, but what you do is you are a comedian, you do stand up, but you also do a lot of skits. And the skits are often around the psychedelic community, the spiritual community, and making light of, having fun with, kind of poking at the holes of it all. And I really think that that's a super needed thing, because in the spiritual space, things can get either very, very serious, very delusional. Like there's a whole lot of weird, funky stuff that can happen in the spirituality space. And I want to talk about, like, how did you find yourself in this particular space, like the festival going place? But before we get to that, I was just curious, like, when did you know that like comedy was going to be your particular art form?
It was, I don't think there was ever a moment where I said, I'm going to do this. It was kind of a gradual learning curve that took me on that kept pushing me along my creative journey, starting as early as high school when I was doing silly videos with friends on a handycam. And then in college, I started making short video content in the vein of like The Lonely Island and Andy Samberg and those guys. Got into some short student films too, started producing, learning what it took to put a project together. And then that became super interesting and fulfilling. And then when I went to LA after college, I threw myself on stage, started doing stand-up, sketch comedy at a couple theaters in town, improv on stage at a couple theaters in town. And that added a new level of interest and creative fulfillment for me. So I just kept tacking these things on as I went until eventually, I was editing in between working at my day job. I was setting up video shoots while I was a production assistant on commercials and music videos. And I just kept like absorbing knowledge and learning as much as I could about the creative process, while simultaneously trying to figure out what my own creative process would be on my own projects. And that whole journey was, I've been doing stand-up comedy now for about 10, 11 years. So there was never really a moment, but it just kind of kept gradually going. I guess the moment I worked my last kind of day job, I guess you could say, was in 2019. And then just not having to go back to pouring people coffee. I guess that could be kind of pinpointed as the moment where I was like, well, I got to do this for real now. And it's a constant journey of trying to figure out how to make ends meet, what I like doing creatively, what other people like that I put out into the world, and the balance of all those things together. But it's been fun. It's been a fun ride, and I got a lot more to learn for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, congrats on the success so far. You know, I see you as one of the top people in this space. So,
cool. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, brother, you're doing some awesome stuff, and it's been super cool to work with you on a handful of things for Sheath.
Yeah, those are so fun.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think our audience really loves it, and certainly I love it, and my brother as well. I'm curious, you know, from a kid, did you always have this kind of sense of humor? Were you maybe the class clown? Would you get in trouble at school and this and that? Or is it something you think developed later?
Yeah, so I was raised by a single mom. So she was my first audience, and I was like a mischievous little kid, you know, nothing crazy, but silly stuff. Like I remember we would go to visit my great grandparents at the place they were living when I was young. I was like 2, 3, 4 years old. And I would always sneak under the table and tie my great grandpa's shoes together. Mm-hmm. And he'd always pretend like, oh no, I can't walk now. And it was just the funniest thing. Yeah. So I'd be like the playful one. I was the oldest of the kids in my family. My mom has a couple siblings, but I don't have any cousins in my age bracket. So it was always just me for a while. So I had like my family as an audience, and I would just play. I love to play. And then growing up, I don't know. I definitely had, I guess, class clown tendencies, but some of the guys I grew up with are way funnier than me in our like friend circle. You know, I wasn't the center of focus in my friend group as like the funny guy. That award probably goes to Dan Kimball or Xian or somebody else that I grew up with. But we loved bagging on each other. We loved to laugh. Everybody got along so well growing up in junior high and high school. So it was really like just being around people who were constantly, you know, seeking joy within the friend group. Definitely had a big impact for sure. And I was raised on, you know, Saturday Night Live and Chris Farley's old movies, Adam Sandler's early movies. But my mom raised me, you know, she had me young. So she raised me as like her friend and her son, but also like she was my homie, you know, we were like best friends. So it was cool to kind of grow up with that type of influence, and that definitely rubbed off over time.
That's awesome, dude. And when and where did this kind of spiritual angle start coming in? I feel like part of you has experienced the spirituality and then have also, you know, wanted to poke fun at it as well. So I'm curious, how did that happen?
Yeah. So my mom, you know, she had me young. She was a Deadhead. She was super into the Grateful Dead. And she brought me to a lot of concerts, a lot of reggae concerts, a lot of Grateful Dead shows. I lived in Arcata up in Humboldt County for a couple of years when I was young. And I think kind of growing up with her influence, it gave me a sense of spirituality from a very young age. I didn't grow up with religion in a traditional sense at all. I wasn't raised going to church. I was raised to talk to the universe if I had a question. And I carried that as kind of a layer of existential spirituality throughout my childhood and just throughout life. You know, I in high school and college, I played basketball and I partied, but I always deep down had this sense of spirituality and constant curiosity for who we are as people and what our place is in the universe. And so I took that, and then coming out of college, I started going to a lot more like transformational festivals with a good buddy of mine, Nate, who's a DJ, goes by Equanimous. And I kind of rediscovered that sense of spirituality through the festival scene and through some of those early experiences with psychedelics, which kind of broke my brain open in a cool way. Because I'd always kept that sense of spirituality, but I was never outwardly expressing it through high school and college, because I was outwardly expressing sports and mainstream culture and college life and partying. And that was all fun. And I have no regrets because it was awesome. But coming out of that and into like young adult life on my own, away from college, I started working with a couple different substances in like a mindful way, and getting deeper into the festival scene and kind of like this conscious community that my friend Nate had introduced me to. And that had like a profound effect on my creative inspiration, and really started to help me mold my perspective toward the world, and help me start to kind of hone in on what I wanted to say, what I wanted to comment on as a comedian, as an artist, and how through video, through comedy specifically, through taking all the inspiration I had as a kid from all the SNL that I watched, Chris Farley and Jim Carrey and all the people I loved, the big physical, wacky people, and then kind of translating that into my own style based on their inspiration, and then using that to put out content and material that defined my perspective toward the world and modern life. That whole process was very much influenced and shaped by work with psychedelics, work on myself, and kind of allowing myself to rediscover my own sense of spirituality.
Yeah. Damn, that's awesome, dude. Yeah, there's a lot there. For yourself, can you recall like the first kind of psychedelic experience that really like taught you something that really like showed you these like higher dimensions or whatever it might be that really impacted you deeply?
Yeah, one of them was that first festival experience that I had out of college, when it was at Lightning in a Bottle, the festival out in Southern California. And it was my first time taking LSD. And it was such a trip. It was so wild. It was the first time I had ever experienced the power of what a substance like that can do. And it was all positive. It was overwhelming at times, a little bit, sure, but I was with my best friend, and he was experienced in that space, so he was a great person to be around. And as we know, set and setting means everything during an experience like that. But it was wild. It was, what I took from that is in the moment, I remember thinking there are so many levels to the human experience that we don't tap into on a regular basis. Deep love, deep joy, deep laughter, deep respect, deep appreciation. And I felt all of those things throughout the course of the night, through different experiences, different conversations with people, different moments with nature, with art, with music, with friends, with new friends, with discovering something. You're bouncing around in a huge festival like that, like a ping pong ball, right? Like a pinball, just going from thing to thing throughout the whole night. So I felt all of those emotions and more in a very deep way. And coming out of that, I began consciously trying to integrate those experiences that I had felt into my daily life as best I could, so that I could tap back into what I was feeling in the moment on a regular basis, without any medicine, without any substance. Because that's really, what, in my opinion, that's what really allows for a more fuller life to be built, is when you take an experience like that and you try to integrate it into your daily life, so that you can feel these deep levels of positive emotion and positive experience on a regular basis. So that was huge. And I've had other experiences with other substances too that have been pretty profound. But speaking to like an early first one that really opened the doors of perception, if you want to get a little Huxley with it, that was that was a big moment, and it was like incredibly fun. It was so fun, and the whole time I was like, man, I want to help people have this much fun. I can't just go around giving people acid all the time. I got to do it through laughter and art and the stuff I create. But man, can I help people laugh this much? Because what's happening to me right now is hilarious. So that was an awesome experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that is what those types of things you're talking about, like that deep reverence that you find, and the deep gratitude and the deep laughter, was what for me almost erased that like mild depression that I had in a day. Because previous to that, it's always like you're looking at the world with the glass half empty. It's always like nothing's good enough, nothing's fast enough.
Yeah.
You're always just like disappointed by this, that, and the other thing, even though it's like everything is really great and amazing, and there's so much to be grateful for and have gratitude towards. It's right in front of you the whole time, and it's just like, in my handful of experiences, early ones, you get this sense of like love is the most important thing, and it might even be the fabric of the universe. And your heart just like overflows with these immense feelings of compassion towards humanity and what we're all facing, and from that, I start to research different spiritual traditions, different religions, different ways of thinking about the world. And of course, you bump into like Buddhism, and the whole idea of suffering is essentially like what we're all in. This whole experience is an experience of trying to escape suffering, trying to come to terms with suffering. And that was like what Buddha had, went on a quest after to understand. And then after discovering Buddhism, I really, really resonated with Taoism. Have you researched Taoism much?
Yeah, there's a book, one of my favorite books, if not my favorite book of all time. It's called The Dao of Pooh. Do you know about this book?
No.
All right, so
sounds good though.
The Dao of Pooh. Did you grow up watching Winnie the Pooh?
Mm-hmm.
So in this book, The Dao of Pooh, the author equates Winnie the Pooh's entire ideology and perspective toward life with Lao Tzu, or Lao Tzu?
Lao Tzu.
With Lao Tzu's teachings, and talks about how Pooh is at his core a prime example of a Taoist, because he goes with the flow, and he doesn't add conflict to his life. He doesn't seek conflict. He doesn't operate from a place of fear or envy or greed or longing or want, except for honey. That's all he wants. It's an incredible book. I just read it for like the third time about 2 months ago. Nice. And so yeah, Taoism is something I've looked into probably more than any other religion. I'm still in a space where I'm trying to learn more about different religions and approaches, but the Dao of Pooh is something that really stuck with me, because the author really breaks down like each character and what their perspective is toward life, and why it's so anti-Taoist. Eeyore, the grumpy nihilist, Tigger, the over-energized, like forcibly joyous one who's in everybody's business. Rabbit, Rabbit is kind of the neurotic one. The owl is kind of the know-it-all. But Pooh just is. Yeah. And that's really like the thesis of the book. So it's incredible. Highly recommend.
Dude, yeah, I'll definitely peep that, especially because Taoism is like my top thought structure that I call to whenever I find myself in a moment of stress, or just like having like an off week or anything like that. I'll put on the Tao Te Ching and go into the sauna and just freaking listen and sweat. And when I come out, I'm like, I know what to do. It's just like, just be with it, like just face what this is, go with the flow. Absolutely. It's so much easier to just go with the flow than to get bent out of shape over everything that is out of our control, take action on what's within your control, but the things that are out of your control, there's no reason to worry.
Right.
I think Alan Watts said, no matter how much you worry, it's not going to change anything that happens.
Yep.
So
Stoicism is really cool. I always did relate very slightly to the crazy nihilists in The Big Lebowski. I think
I haven't seen it yet.
Dude, gotta go watch it. Put that at the top of your to-do list. Go watch The Big Lebowski after this.
Okay.
There's these like German or Dutch or Swedish nihilists that just care about nothing. It's very funny. So I can't go into it if you haven't seen it, but you got to go watch it.
Awesome. Well, I know about nihilism because one of the dudes I grew up in a band with became a nihilist for whatever reason, and we would just have long cannabis-fueled chats about why nothing matters, and I would be on the other end and be like, dude, everything matters, and we would just kind of never agree, but it was always good bro hangs, you know what I mean? And
totally. I feel like the people who say nothing matters, I feel like I had a really high thought at one point. Let me see if I can extract it. It was like, if nothing matters, it was if nothing matters, then everything matters. Because if truly, like, at the end of the day, nothing matters and you can do whatever you want, then you should try your best, because if nothing matters, then you're not going to be able to do shit. You're not going to put any effort into anything, and you're going to manifest nothing mattering at all.
Right.
So if you approach that thought as everything matters, and you put your best foot forward and you put your best effort into any objective or endeavor that you're doing, then you create a life where everything matters even more. Something like that. I don't know. Maybe I got to get high again and think it out.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me, because if nothing matters, there's nothing to get bent out of shape about, right? And also, if nothing matters, there's no reason to go down this path of the well-worn path, because if nothing mattered, you could be an artist. You could may as well, if nothing mattered, you know what I mean? So one thing I like to think about when it comes to like solipsism and nihilism, which are these like, like some people get these thoughts out of psychedelics. 5-MeO DMT brings a lot of people to this solipsistic idea that like they are projecting the whole universe and they are God. And in a sense, we all are. We're a seed of it, I feel like. But what I like to think about it is, I kind of think that we're like inside of a cell or something. Like our known universe is like one cell of an even greater being. Like if we were to look at like down into our skin, we would see like cells, like if with a microscope or something. Like we're just one of those on this other potentially freaking walking God being thing out there. And we're just one cell on it. You know what I mean? And for us to see that it is all contained in one energy, I don't know. To me, it makes a lot of sense, because on psychedelics, like the boundaries between things start to melt away, and you can start to see how everything is bound by this field of energy. And like Alex Gray and a lot of visionary artists try to show this type of stuff with their artwork, like this interconnectedness. I like to think of it as just like seeing how everything is always touching. Everything leads to the next thing. It's like the floor isn't different from the wall, unless you just want to like, like categorize it. It's going up and it leads out to the house that leads out to the pavement that goes down the street that connects to the ocean, that connects to
that's connected to the molecules in the air of the atmosphere. There's the only space in between anything is that tiny, tiny, tiny space of vibration, right?
Yeah, right.
Which is, one of the other bigger thoughts that I've had when working with psychedelics. And I think a lot of people forget that. A lot of people actually don't know it. A lot of people don't think about it enough. And a lot of people, and some people think about it too much, because that's not where you should be ruminating all day, every day, because you won't get anything done. And I know plenty of wooks, and I love the wooks. I love them. I love you, wooks. But I know plenty of people who only think about that, and it seems like that's all they think about all the time. And I don't know how productive you can be when you're only thinking about the interconnectedness and oneness of everything. I find, but to each their own. I've found for myself that keeping that thought in consideration during low moments of life have really helped me navigate darker spaces and more frustrating, anxiety-ridden, stressful times. If I can remind myself that I'm just part of a bigger thing, and I am not the emotion that I'm feeling, I am not the dark space that I feel like I'm currently in, it really helps me get a better perspective toward life itself, my place in this life for this finite amount of time I have to live. And I think the people who think about it too much are much better off than the people who never think about it. That's for sure. Because the people who seem to have lost the ability, or perhaps never had the sense of oneness with everything. Maybe they were never taught. Maybe it was never explained to them. Maybe they never had the innate curiosity to seek this type of thinking out. Maybe they were discouraged from having the curiosity to seek this type of thing out. Those people are politicians. That's who we elect as president now.
Right.
And I'm joking, but people who have kind of lost or never had that mindset, I feel like if they did, we'd be in a much better place as a society. We'd be in a much more abundant place. We'd be in a much more communal culture. If everybody could tap into that frame of mind every once in a while. It doesn't need to be something we think about for all 16 hours of the day that we're awake. But to be able to have the curiosity to tap into that and really meditate on that and think on it, for me, it's opened up my brain. It's opened up my creative field. It's helped me really discern what I'm into as a creator and what my place is as a human, as an artist, as a friend, as an individual. Once I have that grand scheme picture, it's helped me really fine tune what my offering is going to be to this greater oneness,
Absolutely. Yep. I relate to that. And what it brings to mind is something that occurred to me during one of my initial psychedelic experiences, was that I was the main character of my movie. I was the director, I was the actor, I was the producer. It was like, oh shit, I have agency.
Yeah.
I can decide stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, of course I know I could decide certain things, whether I'm gonna eat pizza or a hamburger or whatever, right? But I didn't really feel like I had real control of my life and the direction that it went, the skills I could cultivate. It was always it was just told to me, and I would just believe it. And, that's just maybe the monkey mind and how it works and how the educational system works and all of that. But after I had the sense that oh, wow, I am a sovereign consciousness. I can decide what I'm going to do with all these, this freaking precious gift of existence. And that was another thing I got from it, was this, like we said earlier, the reverence and the gratitude, but also the rarity. I could just feel how rare it was to be incarnate as a human. I could have just as easily been an ant or a bug or, just a bird or a crocodile or whatever it might have been. But it's I have these hands, this mind. they all work, right? It's like I even got gratitude for my senses functioning. Like some people are blind, some people are deaf, some
Totally.
people don't have hands. It's like, whoa, I have all this shit,
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
I better use it,
Yeah,
It's such an awakening.
totally.
I was gonna say though that I think it might have been in your story. Were you the one posting about psychedelics for politicians?
That is the movement that I'm trying to begin. Yeah, that is the
Yes.
mission. Yeah.
What do you think would happen if it worked?
Man, so that Psychedelics for Politicians is it stems from a joke that I do on stage in my live show. And now it's stickers and it's yard signs, and I'm going to release them online pretty soon. But it comes from a joke I did. I and it's in my comedy special, Conscious Bro, which is out now on YouTube. And I think it would be one of, if not the biggest, transformational change in modern day politics and leadership if some of these leaders and prospective leaders were to experience a very deep psychedelic journey.
Yeah.
I think Biden might be too old. I think that might do the opposite for him. But, that's what I think. Thousands of years ago, that's what leaders did in indigenous tribes, in other countries, even in religion. Their wine was tainted with ergot or whatever fungus that had psychotropic or psychoactive effects.
Absolutely.
It's been around for a while, before religion crushed it, before the government tried to crush it, before big industries stepped in and tried to crush it. And, I don't think psychedelics are a cure-all. I think they're a tool, just the same as breath work, meditation, yoga, healthy eating, daily mindfulness. All these things are tools. In my experience, psychedelics have helped in an immense way. And I think if politicians took a swig of some Peruvian mud juice, I think we'd see a lot of positive changes in society for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like what it would do personally is like, if we were to actually elevate our way of leadership and the way we took care of our communities and solve the homelessness problem, solve the hunger problems. I don't know. I feel like we could be a better community and not looked at in that way. And psychedelics would certainly show you that like the nation is the tribe. We need to like take care of it, and we need to think about how to work on the system from within the system. I mean, I feel like I didn't make this up. I saw someone else say it, but like essentially anyone stepping into a high level of office, even just not even the president or the vice president, but just any type of high level where you're going to be passing bills and this and that you should have like a mandatory psychedelic session per year or something, like even if it's like MDMA with a therapist, it doesn't have to be ayahuasca, just even MDMA with a therapist, you would make better decisions, more well-rounded decisions. Because I'm sure so much of what's going on is just like favors for this, that, and the other person who is in power. And like, I don't really care what it doesn't impact me and my life and my son. But, it makes the country fucking weird and, like less than ideal. And
I think, a lot of leaders today have lost a certain level of care about humanity. You look at North Korea, you look at Russia, you look at some of the things happening in the Middle East, and it just feels like there's a pattern of disregard for humanity and human life being practiced by leaders of different countries, of different nations. Right. And that's kind of like the first thing you feel, or one of the a main experience that's shared by people who experience deeper psychedelic journeys and psychedelic experiences, is a love and respect for your fellow human, and a recognition of this oneness that we're all a part of. And it doesn't, Putin doesn't need to do DMT or ayahuasca. It sure would be great. Is there any other way that we could smack him in the face with some love for humanity? I don't know. But man, what a profound change we would experience across the globe if some of these leaders had that innate sense of respect for humanity and humankind. And I am hopeful, the next generation coming along that's going to take what we are building now with this psychedelic renaissance, with this movement toward independence in regards to health and wellness, with an ever expanding distrust of bigger industry, pharma, agriculture, food, medicine, all of those things combined. I have to hold on to the faith that those are setting up the next generations to really make a huge change in a way that maybe we will have a president in our lifetime that speaks to the good of psychedelics, or if not psychedelics, speaks the language of oneness for all of, and Bobby Kennedy does a really good job of that right now, I think. But maybe we'll have a president coming up from Gen Z or Gen Alpha or whatever the next gen is, that has had these types of experiences and thoughts, and has that innate curiosity that will allow them to reshape the political landscape and eventually the global geopolitical landscape all around. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, since Denver legalized psychedelics, or decriminalized them, and I think Oakland did it as well, nothing really crazy bad has happened. So
yeah. And Portland, I think too.
Portland. Yeah. So I think it's working, and I could see that going well. I know for 10 years now, people have been pointing to, I believe it's Portugal as an example of a country that decriminalized like all substances, and their crime rate went down. Right. So it's just like, why do we have our cops looking around for some flowers when they could be actually looking for killers and whatnot? Yeah. You know what I mean? Totally. So I feel like it's just obvious, and hopefully in the next decade or so, we do start to see that as a change to America. And I will say I am dogging on America a little bit, but also I am super grateful, and I realize the privilege that it is to live here. And I do love it. You know what I mean? Like, it's comfortable. I'm not like having to, deal with like these crazy third world country problems. So it is great. It is great. But it could be a little better and a little more wholesome.
Totally.
Well, I think we hit all that pretty good, man. I was curious to step into how you kind of get inspired for these characters that you play. I've seen you like do the Wook. I've seen you do the like, what do you call it? The divine masculine, right? Yeah. I've seen you do the biohacking expert and all types of stuff. I'm just curious if we could step behind the scenes a little with you and see like, what is your kind of process for bringing these hilarious characters that we all witness in this space?
Thanks, man.
To the screen, Yeah,
I appreciate it. I'm stoked you like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I came up performing at the Groundlings, which is a sketch comedy improv theater out here in Los Angeles. A lot of great people went through it. Will Ferrell, Kristen Wiig, Anna Gasteyer, Chris Kattan, and as well as UCB, which is another improv school out here founded by Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. And the years I spent training through those programs gave me a lot of knowledge and helped me kind of build my approach toward coming up with characters and stories and scenes. And I still use a lot of those tools and tactics when I'm like building a character or thinking about an approach toward a certain topic. But rule number one is it's got to be funny to me. It's got to make me laugh. So, I just put out a video today where I'm the editor for California Governor Gavin Newsom's new memoir that he's writing. Because I saw a headline about how he's writing a new memoir. I'm not a huge fan of Gavin Newsom. But regardless, if you like him or not, it's open season on politicians. So who cares? So I saw he's writing a new book. and I was trying to think of like a funny way to describe what's in the book. I've done an impression of Gavin Newsom many, many times, so it doesn't feel super exciting to me to do more impressions of him right now. But every book needs an editor, so that was kind of the first character that came to mind that was adjacent to him and to that project. And from there, you know, it's what does the character want? What is their personality like? And I really like to do characters that are super, super confident, but their perspective is just a little bit skewed, right? Like a super confident character that isn't totally right. You know, like what's another good example? Like the biohacking characters, like super confident in health and wellness, and yet some of their approaches are definitely like fatal potentially, you know.
Right.
Like, you know, biohackers, they got the whole electricity thing, the hookup to their arms or whatever. And so this character that I did a while back, he went straight to the source by putting a butter knife into a wall outlet to really get that electrical charge through his blood. So yeah, just the absurdity of some of the things that people do in real life is always inspiring to me. Because in all these little niches that we have, there's always people who take things a little bit too seriously, that are a little too confident. And it's fun for me to kind of shine light on those absurdities and so that we can laugh at it together. You know, it's usually with respect, unless the comedy is toward politics or a politician of some sort.
Right. I wonder too, maybe this is just my interpretation of it, but do you almost hope to teach people like what's taking it too far? Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think I really like highlighting what I think is going too far and highlighting different things that are insane. So I did a video last year where I played a guy who listens to Andrew Huberman way too much. Right. And his morning routine is so big and so long that it extends from the morning into the afternoon and the evening and the night. Because all I ever hear about is like, you wake up, you journal, you look at sunlight, you stretch, you go for a walk, you meditate, you drink water. And it's like all these things stretched out. Right. And that was always really funny to me, because some people do have like 2-hour morning routines, which is fine, to each their own. But I think it's absurd. And so I decided to make a video about it. And, you know, the rule of thumb for me is if I think it's funny, other people will too. And those people will gravitate and be attracted toward the content and toward what I'm doing and the intention that I have behind spotlighting a piece of absurdity from modern culture to allow us all to just laugh at it instead of like brutally mock it. Because I don't like brutally mocking things. You know, there's some people make content that kind of is a little bit more negative. It shines like a negative light on certain things, or it roasts or mocks or parodies a space in a way that is a little too abrasive for me. So I don't like going that far, but I do feel like nothing is off limits. Nothing at all, as long as it's done with the intention of inspiring laughter rather than like shock or pain or guilt or anything like that. Absolutely. It's fun, it's informative, and you know, even the people that maybe are being characterized, caricatured, would learn something about, like, you know what, I do that, and that's fucking silly. Totally. You know, I've got that too.
Which I get a lot. People come up to me all the time and they're like, "Man, that's so me. You got me, dude. You got me." And I love that. That's really cool, because it's always with love that I do these things. And I mock myself too. Like, I do all these things, you know. I have a morning routine. I've tried a bunch of different like practices for my morning. I go to festivals. I'm in the spiritual space. I sit in these intention circles and drink the cacao. And so I do find like there's also an air of self-deprecation that's put into all this stuff. And I think that's kind of what keeps keeps the humility of it, rather than making it an aggressive attack, you know?
Right. 100%. I love that. Now, I wanted to ask too, because I think this is how I was introduced to you, was the alien outfits.
Cool.
And I think it was on Joe Rogan, or, you know, it looked like Joe Rogan's set. and it was like Joe was talking to an alien, or maybe it was two aliens chatting. I'm trying to remember which it was, because you've done a number of skits with it. But I mean, first of all, those prosthetics look very legit, like Hollywood.
Thank you.
Type of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How did, like, what's the origin story of like the aliens, and how you wanted to portray them and whatnot?
Yeah, so that's probably my favorite stuff that I've put out over the years is all the alien content. About 3 years ago now, I think, the Pentagon declassified a couple of documents basically saying there are crafts in our atmosphere that fly around. They're not ours, and we don't know whose they are or where they come from. And it was huge news at the time. This was toward the tail end of COVID. And the idea came to mind, well, if we don't know who they are, let's make a video hypothesizing who they are. And so I called my buddy Blake Weber, who is a hilarious comedian as well. And I wrote up a concept that was like, meet the aliens that keep visiting Earth. And we did a short, like 5-minute mock documentary for YouTube. And in that same day, I also recorded Joe Rogan Talks to an Alien.
Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah, and he recorded one called An Alien, If an Alien Had a Human Girlfriend. And so we had this 3-video series that we put out. People loved it, so we decided to just keep doing it. And we loved it too. And it's just so fun to imagine what another species perspective would be toward humankind and culture and the absurdities of human life. So the prosthetic, it takes 3 hours to put on. I have a kick-ass makeup artist and her assistant who usually comes out to do it. So it's 3 hours in the makeup chair. There's a bald cap. It's got to get glued and dried and painted, and the prosthetic is a 3-part piece. It's wild. And then it takes an hour to take it off. So it's 4 hours out of the day is dedicated toward the makeup and the prosthetic, and the rest of the day, 6 to 8 hour window we have to shoot. But the deeper intention behind that type of content with the alien characters is to reflect humanity back to ourselves, and to see what it would be like if aliens did show up with the motivation of kind of helping humankind progress and evolve our consciousness a bit, to have the awareness that we are not alone, that we are not, Americans and Chinese and Europeans and South Africans. We're just humans. And so that is kind of like a deeper intention behind all that stuff. Intention number one is to make people laugh and make it be entertaining. But immediately following that is on a subconscious level to help people start to expand their awareness toward the possibility that we're not alone. And what would it be like? How would you think if these aliens really were here making these videos? What would that mean to you as a human? Would you think about your place in the world a bit differently? Would you treat people a bit better because these are your brothers and sisters out here, and the aliens are showing you that humankind really is more of a oneness than you had previously thought? And how would the presence of like these extraterrestrial or interdimensional beings, how would that kind of evolve the way that you think and the way that you perceive your space in this universe, your place in humankind and humankind's place in the universe? So there's a deeper intention behind it that hopefully comes across at least subconsciously. But at the end of the day, as long as it's funny, it's a success.
Yeah, definitely. Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely some of my favorite content of yours. And I feel like it just like pushes forward like what we can think of as comedy. But I don't know, when it comes to, you, and of course I'm a fan of Bill Hicks, these types of people that kind of say stuff and you're learning a little something too through it all. Yeah. I feel like that is underutilized by comedians, and it's cool to see you kind of pushing that out there as an ethos that other people can try as well. I think it'd be great to teach people while they're laughing,
Yeah, same. It's and it's cool to be able to do that with certain pieces, is kind of include like a message, like a real message. You know, I enjoy doing that specifically with topical events and any like cultural commentary, you know, like the Gavin Newsom book. Gavin Newsom's writing a new book, so now people know. And so I included that, or teaching people about, like showing people, like I did this video about intention circles a while back that got pretty popular. And that was, you know, to mock kind of the absurdities that I've seen in that space, but also maybe to get people a bit more familiar that type of space exists. I'd love for more people to sit in intention circles and cacao ceremonies. I think they're great and amazing. But it's fun to kind of inject an element of real life that maybe some people wouldn't experience or haven't experienced yet, but now they know it's out there. Maybe they'll start attracting it, or they'll be curious enough to go if given the opportunity. So that's always fun. Yeah,
absolutely. Sweet, man. Well, just while we have a few minutes left here, would love to just ask about kind of, you know, your method of staying energized, staying inspired, and pumping out content. You know, I see you as very prolific, and it's like every week, maybe more, maybe a couple times a week, there's like a full production thing going on. You know what I mean? I'm curious, like, is there a team involved? And also, like, during what part of the day do you record? And is there any like thing you do before you record, or any little tips and tricks you could give someone who is a creator but maybe just doesn't have their foot fully on the gas, you know?
Yeah, lots and lots of cocaine. Lots of cocaine, organic, grass-fed, pasture-raised, not free range. Free range is not the same as pasture-raised cocaine. No, I appreciate it, man. I try to put out a couple new pieces a week, at least 3 new videos per week across my platforms, which is probably why I haven't been able to create a savings account, because I've just put all my money into the stuff I put out. But you know, it's with the intention of building a bigger presence in the future in the TV and film space. So yeah, I sit down to write at least once or twice a week for videos. I do writing sessions for stand-up, writing sessions for bigger projects too, like TV and film. But it's all about execution, and execution is based wholly on communication. So I've been lucky enough to cross paths with some very creative, trustworthy, hilarious people. My friend Nikki Howard, Blake Weber, my videographer David. So we've got a cool ecosystem out here in Los Angeles that we work with together constantly. And we've built a camaraderie and a trust in each other to know that if this person has an idea that sounds insane, I'm going to show up because I trust their vision for it, and vice versa. Yeah. So building that trust in those relationships is really key to anybody who's got some type of creative endeavor that they can't do on their own. Stand-up is something you can do on your own. You just put the full reliance of success you put the full reliance on yourself to achieve success. Whereas in the video and the content production space, it's so reliant on teamwork that you really need communication at all times. Communication about dates, times, involvement, to get prepped for a shoot. You know, I shoot maybe once a week, maybe every other week, twice a month now, but we do full shoot days. So like a 6 to 8 hour shoot day. Nice. And I'll knock out 3 or 4 videos at once. And I work with a couple different editors, a graphic designer, a visual effects artist. So I'll send them videos to work on and collaborate on via, you know, Google Drive or Dropbox. And again, communication. So I value myself pretty highly as a director. So I put a lot of pressure on myself to properly explain and communicate the vision for each project, whether it's something small like a video that just needs some trippy effects, or something bigger like a short film that requires really specific effects and imagery laid into the video. they won't be able to execute unless I communicate it properly. So I can't just give it to them and be like, hey, can you kind of make it like this? I got to find references online. I look up examples on either Google Images or YouTube or stock video sites. I'll look for things that somewhat match what I have in mind for the piece. So it's really, execution to me is based on communication, but everything is based on teamwork. And you really can't operate at a high level unless you're operating alongside people who share all those same principles.
Yeah. Well said. I love that. Yeah, I just had one more question on that type of thing, which is something that I personally deal with, and I know a bunch of creators I've spoken with do as well, which is perfectionism. I feel like for someone to be prolific, something has to like drop about perfectionism, because you could just tinker away for weeks and months, just like on little details that probably people don't even pick up. Is that something you've ever dealt with or gotten past, or is it just something like maybe you're lucky and you don't have that issue? But I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
There's a quote that I really like. I forget who said it or where it comes from. Art is never finished; it is abandoned. And that rings so true for me. I don't think any piece of art is truly finished to the exact specs that the artist wanted it to be finished. Painting, a movie, a video, a poem. You can work on a piece forever and ever. There's always a new brushstroke you can find. There's always a new word or a syllable you can inject. There's always a new frame you can add or remove or replace. And so I've taken that to heart over the years. And I part ways with my art. I abandon it as soon as I put it out, as soon as I release it. And that feels good. Adopting that mentality has allowed me to release work at a higher cadence than I would be releasing it if I had any more of a perfectionist approach, because you can't be perfect. You can't. You have to just put shit out, especially today when everybody's putting shit out. There's more art being created today. This year, there will probably be more art created than ever in the history of humankind. Like, there's so much shit. There's so many people putting stuff out. There's so much content, whether digital or real life, physical. So you kind of can't. You just can't. You can't be a perfectionist if you want to achieve success, because you have to fail. You need stuff. I think you need stuff to not be perfect in order to grow. Because if it's perfect, you're not going to grow. There's no room to grow if you're perfect. There's only room to grow if you're imperfect. So it's a constant striving to do better. It's a constant acknowledgement that this is not perfect, but it is on the path to becoming perfect, which is an unreachable goal. But having that unreachable goal is what keeps me moving closer toward it. So that's been my approach toward like perfectionism. I do dial in, and I will stay up until like 4 a.m. editing something. If I really want it to be crisp, or if it's got to be a certain way, I definitely put in the time and the effort to get there. But I'm a bit past the point of trying to make stuff perfect all the time, just because it's an impossible goal.
Yeah, damn, well said. Super appreciate your time today, Brent.
Dude, thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Absolutely, man. You want to shout out your special and where people can link with you on the socials and whatnot?
Yeah. So the special is called Conscious Bro. It's out now on YouTube. Just type in Conscious Bro or type in Brent Pella comedy special. You'll see it. We released it with a distribution company called 800 Pound Gorilla, which is great. So that's out now on YouTube. And then I got a bunch of tour dates coming up: Nashville, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Plano, Texas. Later in the year, hopefully Portland, Vegas, Chicago, Florida, New York. BrentPella.com/shows for all the tour dates and tickets, and then videos released almost every day online. So check those out. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, guys, that is Brent Pella. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to all the listeners for listening. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Cool. See ya.